Thanks for Cedric inviting me to give some talks about our ongoing research on software crowdsourcing. Software crowdsourcing is slightly different from open source, but it's certainly complementary to open source approach. Crowdsourcing is a term coined by Jeff Howey back in 2008. It's more about taking a job that used to be undertaken by internal staffs, developers, and then that kind of job they post it online and make it publicly accessible so that they can enterprise and companies can tap into collective intelligence, not just only by open source, but also by more market-driven approach, such as prize, award, so that they can give financial incentives to really contribute their wisdoms to address sophisticated problems. So software crowdsourcing is an open call for participation in any kind of software development, documentation, development, coding, testing, and it also adapts an adaptive and open distributed development process, which means it can quickly change the software systems toward a user requirement. It's certainly the entire process of the crowdsourcing is open to the public, that anyone who are interested and have time and willingness to participate, they can join this process. And certainly it's online and in a distributed way. So the famous software crowdsourcing platforms, if generally speaking, the AVB Store, Topcoder, Applause, all kinds of these kind of software crowdsourcing platforms. So this table highlights the similarities and difference between the main software development approach, including open source and software crowdsourcing. So everybody perhaps knows about Agile, right? And Agile means we have a small group of developers and stakeholders. They sit together, they talk it in a daily or weekly basis, and then they have through this face-to-face meeting, they can quickly decide which path they should go toward the software development. And we have this outsource activity going on for many years, especially for large companies like IBM or Oracle. They have a globally distributed team based on the US and Europe and Asia. And these teams work together, and by using this time difference, they can have 24 hours working for the same project. Also, we have the open source. Open source definitely globally distributed, but it's emphasized loosely coupled and self-controlled. There's usually no central unit to control this whole project, and it's community-based, and the code certainly shared and opened to the development and the entire community. Most open source projects, their incentive mechanisms are volunteer based, but certainly there are, for many projects, there are large companies working behind to pay for the code developers, right? But the beta testers and users, they are just usually feeling interested in the project and they can get involvement. Software crowdsourcing certainly have some similarities to the open source in terms of distribution, in terms of coordination. But one of the major differences is it adopts approach we call cooperation. Means it has not just cooperation, but competition. Many developers can work on the same tasks and try to compete with the quality of the outcome to really win the prize and award. And certainly the process is definitely open, but not necessary source code. In many software crowdsourcing projects, they are not make their code public accessible, but their platforms certainly have open APIs, so people can build things upon their platforms so that they can build up an ecosystem. And for the incentive mechanisms, it heavily depends on this labor market to really driven people by award and price. So these diagrams illustrate the basic structure of a software ecosystem, software crowdsourcing. So basically, when you have different requirements emerging, and we have this so-called peer production model, which means you have a community group of people who are interested in it. You publish the tasks online, and people interested can, and then if they have time, they can contribute to the project. And behind the scene, there are rewarding system, reputation system, and quality assurance. Basically, try to provide enough incentives to stimulate community members to really join the development. And also, they have this usually data mining and big data algorithms to try to evaluate the skill levels of the community members and try to recommend appropriate tasks on behalf of employees so that they can do this job matching assignments optimization for the quality of the project. And definitely because you have many inputs from the community members, and you need to have a rigorous quality assurance so that you're not just you get the right code, but not healthy code, not something that with backdoors and vicious code. And to really sustain this, all these things working together, you need to have a governance structure, community management, and board to design the right policy to make the right decisions. Currently, there are many crowdsourcing platforms available online now, based on the phase of different software engineering. You can have these 7 levels of crowdsourcing types of platforms. For requirement, you can have like Greenfield, Mobile for Hive. For information architecture, you have 99 Designs, CrowdSpring, or Desk. And for visual designs, just for the GUI interface design, you have all this, and application development, application testing, and for the beta management, before you try to release your mobile app and other user-oriented applications, you need to run beta testing through the Applause or Central Code. And last step, you have the user feedback loops, such as App Annie, Applause, User Voice. So to simplify this whole picture, we have these 4 steps APP development lifecycle. Initially, you can have for a mobile app, people can quickly come up with novel ideas, and then finish the design and development, and you push it to the beta testing community to really give a dry run, and then you make it publicly accessible through App Store. And by having it tested by the real users, you can evaluate, you can learn from lessons, and try to decide what's the best feature, what's the popular features that have real user values to users. And you can analyze and plan for the next version of the design and development. So for the requirement and the user feedback evaluation, currently you can have a web crawler to download rich data from all sorts of app stores, like Google App Player and iOS Player. And there are many other app stores there that you can download the data. Usually, the data sets include a number of downloads, mobile app price, app description, ranking, user review, and comments. Through this data, you can make some requirement extraction by analyzing the user feedbacks, you probably can evaluate what's the popular features, apps that really users really enjoyed. But maybe there are some features many people don't like it and even hate it. So these insights, from this data mining, helps developers to really decide what should be enhanced and what should be fixed in the next release. Currently, we do some data analysis based on the data we collected. We call it AppChart, which is a popular app store in China. We do some basic statistic analysis between the different factors and the downloads number. You can see that their rating, price, app name, and rank, and update times. Interestingly, we ignore the details because anyone interested, we can talk after the session. But the major findings here is, interestingly, the price not the significant correlated factor in determining app download times. Usually, people may believe that if you set price too high, it may affect your app downloads, because app downloads basically determine the income of your app. But it is not. Through the data analysis, it shows quite the opposite observation. Okay, for the development, one of the important issues is how to design write a rewarding system. So here, the business and economy theory, especially game theory, can play a significant role in this research field. Many crowdsourcing-based software project activities now can be regarded as programming contests. That means you have tasks, not maybe just a GUI design, or maybe just a component design, or maybe integrate all pieces together and then build a complete system. All this can be organized as a programming competition, and you give a detailed specification of your tasks, and you specify the price, and a couple of people will join and work for a while, and then you have a team behind the scene to evaluate the quality of their submission, and based on submission, you will select a hand of winners from the submission and decided which one you should award, get the prize. But one of the questions is, can such a competition promote production and ensure software quality? So one of the major competition-based crowdsourcing platform is Topcoder. It has been here more than a decade. A lot of, I think there are 500,000 developers in the world. One-fourth of them actually from China, and 1/5, I remember, from Russia and other European countries, but also certainly a group of people from US. So in the Topcoder, they basically divided every step of software development into a kind of competition, and then run it the way that I just described. We collected the data and do some preliminary analysis from 2004 to 2014. There are around 114,000 development contests. So there are nearly 10,000 active developers and 40,000 submissions. So gradually they're in growth. And weekly you can see they have like 100 development contests for all kinds of softwares, especially on cloud computing, mobile softwares. So here we can give a case. This case is actually a project from MIT. They use the topcoder for the entire development lifecycle. In this project, they're trying to build a web portal to support their collaboratory. This collaboratory is called Zero Robotics. And basically, they have this zero gravity robotics on the International Space Station. They have this operated by the scientists, and high school students can design robotic programs. First they need to simulate that on a computer, and then they have these competitions, and the MIT select the winner and upload the code to the robot, and floating around in a space station. So to support this, they need to have a portal to really organize the competition, to allow students to run a simulation and select the best candidates for the real thing. So they have around a dozens of top-coder contests, from conceptualization, requirement, architecture, component implementation, assembly, UI prototype, and bug race. So each of the steps, you can see some have 15 contests, some have few contests, and they only select the best of them and finish this whole thing. Okay. By digging into the data, we built this game theory-based model to really analyze the production and incentive of the user. I will skip these details because I know this is not a good time to really talk about the models and theories. But simply put, if you just set the winner as 1, and you will see that statistically there's something called Nash equilibrium, which actually divided the group of developers into 2 groups. One is an active one. Those people are usually more confident and have time to really contribute to the project. The other is the passive group. They usually just sign in, but they don't really do things. So, and to confirm this theoretical discovery, we also do some data analysis, and here you can see this is an architecture design contest. So one of the top-coder contest types, and for all these contests through, I think within 2014, you can clearly see this is the total number for the registration for every contest. But this, the second curve, is actually the developers who really submit, and these submissions are actually determined to be effective and qualified. So there is a sharp difference between the registers and the real contributors. So basically divided to 2 groups. But certainly there are a lot of interesting research we can do with the data and try to understand the behavior of the developers and try to understand the interactions of the developers. It will be interesting to compare the developers and the OSS developers, because there are also a lot of publications on analyze the developers' behaviors in the open source community. Actually, one of the presentations is from Peck University, but she cannot make it. The third area of research topics in software crowdsourcing is recommendation and task matching systems. This slide is from researcher from at the University College of London. And basic idea is in the crowdsourcing history, on every of the step, the participants, and we know how they performed, right, and the activity of these participants. So for each of the participants, we can build a profile to really describe their skills, to describe their working attitudes, even the activity patterns. And based on that, whenever you have new tasks, you can understand what kind of developers you might need for your tasks, and then use recommendation algorithms to really select the best candidates you really want for your job. So that's the basic framework that he proposed, and he did extensive data analysis on his publication. The idea is also like big data one, right? You extract the data, you design the features, and interestingly, he participant the developers into two groups. One is really contributors, and one is the participation. Because sometimes people, you need to attract enough people, but given the award mechanisms, you only can expect a handful of them really do the active job. The last part is the crowd testing, because testing is essential for ensuring the high quality of the product from software crowdsourcing. Given the all sorts of submissions, sometimes you might get the false or low quality of submission. You really need to filter out those. And right now, crowd-based testing has been applied for all sorts of testing jobs, including functional testing, performance testing, usability testing, and security testing. In my opinion, there are two very sweet spots for crowd testing. One is end user for mobile testing, because now we have all kinds of mobile phone vendors, and you have different reception signals around the world. We have the Huawei phone, and in China we have dozens of phones you can choose. And to really test whether your app run on these phones, you don't have enough resources within your enterprise to do that. So crowd will be the best choice, especially for the beta testing and the location-based testing. Imagine you have an app that's in different locations of Paris, right? Some have good signal reception, some are low quality reception, and you'll be interesting to find out how your program react and perform in different circumstances. And the second aspect is security testing, because in my experience, especially for the small and the medium-sized company, they don't usually have enough experts, to really test the system. A lot of systems in China actually can be easily hackable. I suppose maybe also in France. No, you're doing better job than us. I can give you two examples. One is at eBay. They have this rapid crowdsourced validation, because eBay is an international company. When they try to release their apps on the platforms, they have to run on different locations. In France, Europe, maybe UK, in China, and US. Although the function can be similar, but the language, the currency exchange, it can complicate things. So in that case, and also usually you need to do this validation rapidly. The cycle is variable, and sometimes maybe minutes, maybe hours, or even days. So, and also you need to do like end user compatibility tests, linguistic validations, usability testing, and certainly location-specific tests. So in eBay, they try to certainly have usually the testing are done by internal quality engineers, quality assurance engineers, and they have this QA. You can imagine this is a US QE, US quality engineer, and this is a guy working maybe in UK and Paris. And in order to test it in their own region, they need to find internal crowd and external crowds to really quickly test the apps on the eBay platform. So one of the empiric results from this rapid crowd validation, they perform this test within 1.4 hours. They involved internal non-engineer employees and European product services. They don't really push it publicly, but they just run it within their own enterprise. And they found this approach is quite effective. They found more than 200 bugs, and this bugs ranging from cosmetic, the UI interface, security. Most bugs actually are translation, because when you have different language, this really happened. Functional and content. Okay. The second crowd testing I'd like to highlight is the security. Sorry. Yeah, there are a couple of platforms now in China to support people. Sorry about the Chinese hacker. They don't have the English version. So sometimes when the battery runs low, it reacts pretty slowly. Usually sorry about that. Okay. I probably need to plug in my power, oh, okay, it stays here. Usually, when company want to do that, they publish their systems online and they invite hackers. These hackers are friendly hackers and try to do the penetrating tests to really help them discover the security problems in the systems. And the price design is like this. For the high-risk tasks, they award 2,000 RMB, Chinese yuan. And for the medium risk, they award 800. And for the low risk, it's only 100. It's pretty low in China. You can easily make 100 by doing other things. But later on, they realized that award is not high enough, so they raised up a little bit. So currently, for the high risk is 5,000. For the medium risk, 2,000. But for low risk, it's still 100. So mostly because they realized, in order to stimulate security teams to work on these highly skillful tasks, they need to raise the bar. And especially for the mobile apps, actually there are a lot of security problems now. So it's very important for them to really make security tests. It's pretty hard to estimate the community of this crowd-based security testing, but a hacker, he did an interesting job. He tried to estimate the size of the community using Weibo blog, because usually hacker is they really like to promote themselves. Everybody has this Twitter. In China, we don't have a Twitter, so we have a microblog. They usually post the security problem they find out, to show how their skills. So they detect 2,200 unique IDs, and by applying the principle of 20 and 80, we can safely estimate the size of the community. Active one is actually 300 to 500. Okay, so for each of the crowd testing, we suppose it's about 2 weeks and to 1 month. So the average participation will be 10 developers. So every year we have this, if they worked clock by clock, 500 hackers to test about 1,400 projects, which is certainly far below the real requirements, because there are so many IT companies and their system is terrible. You can easily hack it with minimum amount of skill knowledge. So this is an interesting area that we can explore further. So the last slide is the commercial. So it doesn't show up. We are organizing this IEEE software symposium in next year, April in Oxford. So certainly we covered the area open source and the topics related to this workshop. If anyone interested in submission paper is certainly welcome to join us. Thank you for your attention.
So any question about crowdsourcing? So crowdsourcing is not open source.
It can be open source.
Is inside crowdsourcing.
It's
is crowdsourcing
overlapping.
a way to look at open source, or is it the Chinese way to look at open source?
No.
Because there are paid there.
Yeah, your payment there, right? It can be overlapping. You can, make your source code publicly available, but also you can take advantage of crowdsourcing to really promote the fast tasks. If you really want something get done, you know that for the open source, it takes time to really grow the size of the community, right? To really attract people with good skills. But for crowdsourcing, if you target the right person, especially in the case of security test, you can easily hire people that really want on demand. So
with regard to developing code, crowdsourcing has to be overlapping with open source.
Yeah, you can certainly do that.
Crowdsourcing security testing has nothing to do with open source. Can be.
You can certainly do, if you have an open source project and you really want to do security testing, you can certainly run through that, right? If within your community you don't have enough, security expert, you can certainly, tap into that community, hackers community.
Or we could also analyze open source communities with the concepts you've developed about crowdsourcing.
That's another aspect, because currently, if you don't give people money, then people probably will choose the valuable time for other tasks. And for the open source, if you identified the skillful, the right people, developers for your tasks, and you have the budget, so why not do the crowdsourcing and stimulate people to really make contributions?
You say crowdsourcing, it's developers being paid?
Yeah, in most of the platforms that are cited, they're paid. But in open source, they're paid too, because
yes,
open source we select the right person and we hire them. Red Hat is hiring the good developer from the community.
Most open source developers are paid employees of companies that pay them to contribute to projects.
Yeah. Especially for the core teams, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe the difference is here it's a very part-time, very partial. Maybe we're speaking of full-time people.
So it really depends on the nature of the tasks you want to run.
And you mentioned a few crowdsourcing platforms, but I didn't see GitHub. It's not part of your. It's not on your radar there.
I didn't include GitHub because GitHub have no, payment-based crowdsourcing, right? You have mostly a volunteer-based, so it's open source. But for example, in the Trusty, developed by the National Defense University in China, they integrate the crowdsourcing features.
Meaning
that you can run competitions to to pay people to finish a task.
Incentive people to contribute to projects.
Right.
With the hope that they will gain prize.
Right.
Who's reviewing the code? Can you elaborate on that?
This is a very interesting question. I mean, you can have in-house team. Usually the project manager for the crowdsourcing project manager. When people submit code, you can really read the code and evaluate whether it's have good quality. And sometimes the platforms also can provide the testers, the evaluators to check your code. For example, in the top coder, they usually, before you initiate the project, they hire a coach from community. Basically, they have the money to pay for him to really check the code. Yeah.
So with different projects, they pay the developers to check the code?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I just have to get back. But a lot of open source projects, they don't have the money to do that.
Mm-hmm.
At least
Well, you can, in some cases, you can certainly make the code if itself an open source project, right? And code is valuable to public, you can certainly ask people to help check the code. That's certainly doable.
So what was the motivation to analyze crowdsourcing applied to software?
You mean motivation for the academic world?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this is a very active business sector, actually. There are billions of dollars that are put in the crowdsourcing platforms, and it certainly has its limitation. It's not a silver bullet to every problems, but it can definitely, very effective at addressing some of the issues. For example, security testing, crowd testing, and especially for startup companies. And if they don't have enough skills, they want to hire people online, and crowdsourcing will certainly accelerate the growth of the project.
Yesterday in the community summit, we had a discussion about paying for code.
Mm-hmm.
That some communities, remember discussion about LibreOffice, for instance, they needed to give a push to the development of LibreOffice on Android platforms or things like that. So they started with a mechanism where some people would get money to do that, to get the thing started.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're talking about is pretty much maybe from another perspective, but it addresses the same need.
Right. I suppose, yeah. I mean,
Which means that communities like Eclipse, Linux Foundation, OpenStack, whatever could implement this kind of crowdsourcing
within the community.
mechanisms, or too, where if we want to
Really,
gear up some development,
yeah.
gear up something, we create this contest
Mm-hmm.
because it's a contest based.
Right. If you have a contest, contest can be served for multi-purposes. One is the educational purpose. A lot of contests is trying to, get community's attention, to get enough people to really get involved and learn it. But some of the contests just for like top color contests try to accelerate the development.
And in that case, not everybody who's worked on the project is getting paid. Only the winners.
Yes, but you can certainly tweak the awarding system a little bit, depending on your budget, right? And sometimes you can have more winners, say. But for the complex and time-consuming tasks, certainly you don't want to, spend too much money toward the whole entire community.
So essentially, the crowdsourcing mechanism is contest-based.
No. It really depends on the nature of your job. For example, for the development, a lot of crowdsourcing development actually contest-based. But for the bugs, security test, they are more like a collective effort. Like when you find it, you will be paid for that effort, even you find the duplicate one. Because in that case, you don't need to compare them, right, to select the best one. You just find the right one. Yeah.
What's your point of view regarding code quality? Because one of the benefits, some people have argued that the benefit of doing open source software is that you have all the people in the world to check the software, find bugs and stuff like that. What's your point of view regarding the crowdsourcing way?
I think the open source and crowdsourcing is trying to address the same issue from different aspects. For the open source, especially for like crowd computing and big data as a case, open source definitely promotes the knowledge among the community to attract a lot of talented people to really make things work. And also open source, I don't have time to cover that part, but open source I think is very powerful tools for education, especially for the students. Young students really need to learn the software through open source. But for the majority of the open source projects, it's pretty hard to really grow their community and finish the project within the milestones, because it's loosely coupled, especially without the big money investment from big companies. Most of the projects just fell apart and forgot by people. If you check the GitHub, there are many researchers on that, right? GitHub and SourceForge, more than 80 or even 90% of the project failed. But for a small company, and you happen to have a reasonable budget, and you really want to make things happen quickly, then at that time, crowdsourcing can really help you, right? And you don't need to wait for your company to grow slowly and to wait for some guru person to save your project. You just need to have money, right? You just need to have the right community, and then people were attracted, were stimulated by the prize and words, and it really helps you to address the technical problems. So
yeah, but you just said yes, open source. You said it's loosely coupled, GitHub, all these surveys, they have their own momentum. But then crowdsourcing, you have the sourcing, so it means there is somebody asking for it. So
right.
It's driven. It's a driven process.
Right. But that can be driven easily by your internal team and core people, right? But probably
it's somebody ordering something with a
right.
need, and then organizing a crowdsourcing mechanism to satisfy the need.
Right.
It's really very controlled.
Definitely, yeah. That part is definitely controlled.
And for software crowdsourcing, especially contest-based, how do you manage the IP of people submitting code?
This is a very good question. There are many arguments. I don't have a clear answer for that, but I should say crowdsourcing is definitely applicable for the realms that you don't have sensitivity for the IPs and stuff like that. For example, if you have a defense contract and you have a lot of skill requirement, you don't certainly want your project to be crowdsourced. That can be easily understand. And for the other projects, especially the application level projects, since you already chopped the granity of the project into pieces, and only people can understand the part of the system. So in that case, I suppose it doesn't really pose much threat to the IP because they don't have the entire picture of the whole project. Yeah. But still, a lot of people argue about that, the IP thing. So that's why a lot of crowdsourcing platforms, they have these terms that specify that, they push that to the owner to help them to address the issue. They don't really, want to get involved with that.
Yeah, very thought-provoking.
Yeah, I would like to maybe say if you are okay or not with this. I think that open source projects are mostly about frameworks. Hadoop or OpenStack are just frameworks that everybody needs. Maybe if you use crowdsourcing, is that something that a specific need based on open source project maybe? Some specific needs that are not common where you will not gather any community. So maybe it's addressing some different kind of projects.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yes. Yeah.
So one company can have one need.
Yeah, especially for the customized needs, you don't have enough people really interested in that, and you're turning to crowdsourcing. Right.
And you need a specific platform to support a crowdsourcing initiative or crowdsourcing and
definitely.
operation.
Yeah. You can build a app within the open source platforms that and to allow you to really post your tasks online, right? And to allow people to make submissions. And at the back end, you need to have some evaluation mechanisms for people to really test and integrate them. Interestingly, we are working on the massive online learning system like MOOCs and Open edX. And one of the features that they require by that is similar to the crowdsourcing, because, for example, for a programming course,
And there are commercial or available platforms for that?
For crowdsourcing?
Support crowdsourcing operations?
Not to my knowledge. You can buy. Most people just build up from scratch. Yeah, there are no open source crowdsourcing platform either. Maybe you can build up one. That'll be your first.
Any other question? I think our time's over.
In the agenda, we have mining micro-practice for large-scale open source community.
Well, they did not make it.
Yeah,
Several times. Yeah. Actually, you do have the presentation.
I don't have her presentation.
Joe Mingui?
No, I don't have
Joe
her.
Mingui's presentation.
I have
If
Jack's.
you're interested, I know that presentation. I can make it available to you. They are, it's like a statistical analysis of communities' behavior. They identify roles and patterns.
Okay.
Well, good.
Thank you.
No question. Thank you very much.